You're strapped into your seat, descending toward Mars after 7 months of space travel. Your crew of 6 is running through landing procedures when suddenly alarms start screaming. Something's wrong with the navigation system. The commander's yelling coordinates, the pilots fighting the controls, then impact. Darkness. You wake up hours later, ears ringing, tasting blood. The habitat module is tilted at a sick angle. Red dust is already creeping in through a crack in the hull. You call out for your crew. Nothing. You check the other seats. Empty. Their section of the craft is just gone. Sheared off during the descent like someone took a can opener to your spaceship. You're alone, on Mars, 50 million miles from home, with no way to tell Earth you're alive, and supplies meant for 6 people that now have to keep one person from dying in the most hostile environment humans have ever tried to survive. This isn't science fiction. This is your next 10 days. Before we dive into this nightmare scenario, do me a favour. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Because if you think being stuck in traffic is bad, wait until you hear what happens when your morning commute is on a planet trying to kill you. Drop a comment below telling me how many days you think you'd last. Be honest. Most of us wouldn't make it past day 3. Alright, let's find out what happens when Murphy's Law goes into planetary. Day 1. Waking up to red death. Your head feels like someone used it for batting practice. The alarm that wakes you isn't your phone, it's the habitat's emergency system screaming that you've got a hull breach, not the gentle wake-up call you want after crash landing on Mars. First priority, stop dying. The crack in the hull is about 3 inches long, and Mars' atmosphere is trying to get intimate with your oxygen supply. Mars air is 95% carbon dioxide with basically zero pressure. It's not air so much as spicy vacuum that wants you dead. You grab the emergency patch kit, basically space-grade duct tape, and slap it over the crack. The hissing stops. You've bought yourself time, but that's all. Now you need to figure out what you've got to work with. The habitat module is intactish, which is miracle number 1. It was designed to house 6 people for the initial mission setup, so you've got space. Too much space, actually. Every corner reminds you someone else should be here. You check the communication array. It's dead. Not damaged, not offline. Dead. The whole thing got ripped away during the crash. Earth thinks you're all dead. They watched your ship break apart on descent. There's no rescue mission coming because nobody knows there's anyone to rescue. The life support system is running, but it's angry about it. Yellow lights everywhere. The system was calibrated for 6 people's worth of CO2 to process into oxygen. With just you breathing, it's actually overproducing oxygen, which sounds great until you remember too much oxygen is literally flammable. You'll need to recalibrate everything, and the manual for that was definitely on the commander's tablet, which is somewhere in the Martian desert with the commander. Food inventory time. You've got MREs for 6 people for 30 days. That's 180 days of food for one person, theoretically, but half the storage compartment is compromised. Several packets are already covered in that fine Martian dust that gets into everything. Mars dust isn't like Earth dust. It's razor-sharp, microscopic death powder that's basically toxic. It's got perchlorates that'll mess up your thyroid and who knows what else. Every contaminated packet is a gamble. Water situation. You've got the recycling system, but it needs power. The solar panels deployed automatically, but 2 of the 6 arrays didn't open. You'll need to go outside to fix them. Outside, on Mars, where the average temperature is negative 80 Fahrenheit, and the atmospheric pressure will make your blood literally boil if your suit fails. Speaking of the suit, you check the EVA equipment. 3 suits survived. 1 is yours, sized right. The other 2 are for people much bigger than you. If your suit fails, you can't just hop into another one. You've got one properly fitting, life-preserving outfit for a planet where the dress code is dead in 30 seconds without protection. The medical kit makes you laugh, not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh you do when things are so bad they circle back to funny. Bandages, antibiotics, painkillers, and a surgical kit. Great for treating someone else. Useless for treating yourself if anything serious happens. You can't exactly perform surgery on your own appendix. On Mars, a broken bone isn't just an injury, it's a death sentence in slow motion. You spend the rest of the day doing triage on your situation. The habitat has power for maybe 3 weeks without those solar panels fixed. The water recycler is working at 60% efficiency. The air system needs constant monitoring or you will either suffocate or explode in an oxygen fire. The food is a question mark. The communication is non-existent. But here's the real kicker. You find the mission logs and run the orbital mechanics. The next Mars transfer window when Earth could even theoretically send a rescue mission? 2 years, minimum, and that's if they knew you were alive, which they don't. As the sun sets, and it's a weird, small, dim sunset because the sun is so far away the temperature drops to -100. The habitat creaks and groans as metal contracts. Every sound makes you jump because any one of them could be the sound of something failing that'll kill you. You try to sleep in the commander's bunk because it's the most structurally stable part of the habitat. The silence is devastating. Space is quiet, but it's a different quiet when you know you're alone. No one's breathing in the next bunk. No one's typing on their tablet. No one's humming that annoying song that used to drive you crazy but that you'd give anything to hear now. Mars has this thing where the wind sounds almost like voices. The atmosphere is thin, but wind still exists, and it makes these howling, whispering sounds against the habitat. Your brain, desperate for human contact, keeps trying to turn those sounds into words, into your crewmates calling for help, into rescue teams that don't exist. You realise you haven't spoken out loud all day. When you try, your voice cracks like you haven't used it in years. Day 1, you say to the empty habitat. Still alive. The words hang in the recycled air. You've got food for maybe 180 days if you're lucky. Water as long as the recycler holds. Oxygen as long as the system doesn't fail. But the thing that might kill you first isn't mechanical failure or running out of supplies. It's the crushing absolute loneliness of being the only living thing on an entire planet. Mars doesn't care about you. It doesn't hate you. It just doesn't acknowledge you exist. You're not supposed to be here. Nothing is supposed to be here. And tomorrow you have to go outside and try to fix solar panels while wearing a suit that, if it rips, will kill you faster than you can scream. Which you couldn't anyway, because no one would hear you. Welcome to Mars. Population 1. Day 2. Everything wants you dead. You wake up to the sound of your own breathing, which is weird because usually you don't notice it. But when it's the only sound for 50 million miles, it gets loud. The habitat's life support hums along, trying its best, but that's like white noise now. Your breathing is the only proof anything's alive on this entire rock. Breakfast is a luxury MRE labelled scrambled eggs with bacon. It tastes like someone described eggs to an alien who'd never seen a chicken, and they tried their best. The coffee is instant crystals that dissolve into brown sadness. You'd kill for a real cup of coffee, but the nearest Starbucks is experiencing some technical difficulties, namely existing on a different planet. Today's fun activity: going outside to fix the solar panels. Because apparently surviving a crash landing wasn't enough excitement. You need power, and those panels aren't going to fix themselves. Though honestly, self-repairing solar panels would have been a nice investment, NASA. Just saying. Suiting up alone is like trying to zip up a sleeping bag while you were inside it. The EVA suit was designed for people to help each other. There's supposed to be a buddy system. Check your seals, check your partner's seals, everyone goes home happy. But your buddy system is now you and your reflection in the helmet, and your reflection isn't very helpful. It takes 45 minutes to get suited up. 45 minutes of contorting yourself like you're playing interdimensional Twister. Left hand to right seal, right foot to left boot. Try not to dislocate your shoulder reaching the back connections. The suits cost $12 million each, and somehow nobody thought to add a put me on by yourself feature. The airlock sequence is terrifying when you're alone. You stand in that tiny chamber as it depressurizes, and your lizard brain starts screaming that you're about to walk into death. Which, fair point, lizard brain. Outside that door is an atmosphere that's 100 times thinner than Earth's. The temperature is negative 67 Fahrenheit right now, which is actually warm for Mars. It's like Mars is having a heat wave and it's still cold enough to kill you in minutes. The door opens and you step onto Mars. The gravity hits you immediately. It's 38% of Earth's, so you weigh about as much as a toddler, but your mass is the same. Physics is confusing when you're trying not to trip and tear your suit on a rock. Every step feels like you're walking on a trampoline made of dust and death. The landscape is breathtaking in the worst way. Red stretches to the horizon in every direction. No plants, no water, no movement except dust devils in the distance. Earth has deserts, but they're teeming with life compared to this. This is what nowhere looks like. This is the universe's time-out corner and you're standing in it. You bounce walk to the stuck solar panels. Bounce walk because regular walking doesn't work here. You push off too hard and suddenly you're doing an accidental moon jump. Land wrong and you're eating dirt through your faceplate. Except you can't eat dirt because that would mean your helmet broke and you'd be too dead to taste anything. The panels are covered in dust and the deployment mechanism is jammed with, surprise, more dust. Mars dust is like glitter from hell. It's so fine it gets into everything. It's electrostatic, so it sticks to everything, and then it's toxic because Mars doesn't do anything halfway. You brush off what you can with your thick gloves, trying to be gentle with equipment that costs more than most people's houses. Your suit starts beeping. You've been out for an hour and your oxygen is at 75%. The suit was designed for 8-hour EVAs, but that's with perfect conditions and no panic breathing. You're definitely panic breathing. Every breath fogs up your helmet a little, and the anti-fog coating is working overtime. The first panel suddenly springs open, nearly taking your head off. Note to self, springs under tension in low gravity equal face rockets. The second panel is more stubborn. You have to actually kick it, which in Mars gravity means you also kick yourself backward and land on your back like a turtle. A $12 million turtle gasping profanity that nobody can hear. Getting up in low gravity while wearing a suit is like breakdancing in a sleeping bag filled with bowling balls. You rock back and forth, building momentum, probably looking absolutely ridiculous. Good thing the rovers aren't here to record this. Actually, wait, the rovers. You remember Opportunity and Curiosity are somewhere on this planet. Dead now, probably, but they're here. Your closest neighbours are robots that died alone after years of service. That's not depressing at all. You're basically in a planetary graveyard where the only other Earth things are mechanical corpses. The second panel finally opens after you sweet-talk it and threaten it with a rock. 2 out of 6 panels working. It's not ideal, but it'll extend your power situation from weeks to months. You'll take it. The walk back to the habitat is when Mars decides to show off. A dust devil forms about 100 meters away. On Earth, dust devils are cute little wind spirals. On Mars, they're 10 times taller and look like dirt tornadoes having an anxiety attack. This one is just wandering around like a drunk giant, and you freeze because what's the protocol for Martian weather? There wasn't a chapter in training called When Mars Tries to Vacuum You. The dust devil passes by, indifferent to your existence. Mars doesn't care that you're scared. Mars doesn't care, period. It's not evil. It's just physics and chemistry happening on a scale that doesn't include keeping humans alive in its equation. Back at the airlock, you spend 5 minutes trying to brush off the dust before going in. It's pointless. The dust has chemically bonded with your suit through static charge. You're bringing Mars inside, whether you want to or not. The decontamination sequence feels like going through the world's worst car wash, except the car is you and the wash is trying to remove toxic death powder. Inside, you strip off the suit and realize you're soaked in sweat. The suit's cooling system works, but fear sweat is different from exercise sweat. Fear sweat is your body liquidating itself because it thinks you're about to die. Not wrong, body, not wrong. You check the power readings. The 2 panels bought you maybe 2 months of power if you're conservative. 2 months to figure out how to not die. The Habitat's computer has this cheerful green light showing nominal status, which feels like a lie. Nothing about this situation is nominal. You're a hairless ape in a tin can on a planet that's trying to kill you with physics. Dinner is beef stew, which is brown chunks in brown sauce. It's calories. That's all that matters. You eat mechanically while doing math. 180 days of food if you stretch it. Maybe 200 days of water if the recycler holds. Power for 60 days. Oxygen as long as the system works. The math doesn't add up to survival. The math adds up to dying slower. You realise you're talking to yourself. Not just thinking out loud, but having full conversations. We should check the backup systems tomorrow, you say. Good idea, you respond. Thanks, me. No problem, other me. Is this how madness starts? Probably. But it's better than the silence. The silence is aggressive here. It's not peaceful quiet. It's the universe holding its breath, waiting for you to stop making noise so it can go back to being empty. Before bed, you look out the small window at Earth. It's just a dot. A pale blue dot that has every human who ever lived on it except you. You're the entire population of a planet. The loneliest person in the universe, literally. There are people in solitary confinement who have more company than you, because at least they know someone's on the other side of the wall. Tomorrow you need to figure out the water situation. The recycler is making sounds it shouldn't, and on Mars every weird sound is a potential obituary. But hey, you fixed 2 solar panels today without dying. On Mars, that counts as a win. Day 3. The water problem and talking to yourself. Morning on Mars is a joke. There's no morning, not really. The sun rises, but it's like someone turned on a dim flashlight 50 million miles away. You wake up not because of sunlight, but because the Habitat's life support system makes this grinding noise at exactly 0600 Mars time. It sounds like a coffee grinder eating rocks, which is concerning for a machine keeping you alive. Today's breakfast is maple sausage patty. It looks like a hockey puck and tastes like someone's memory of meat. You eat it anyway because calories don't care about flavour. The nutritional info says it's 300 calories. You need about 2,500 a day to maintain weight, but you're already rationing. Mars diet plan. Lose weight or die trying. The water recycler is today's boss battle. It's making that grinding noise more frequently, and the output has dropped to 40%. On Earth, you'd call a plumber. On Mars, you are the plumber, the electrician, the IT support and the grief counsellor, all rolled into one severely underqualified package. You open the maintenance panel and immediately regret every life choice that led to this moment. The recycler looks like someone asked a spider to design a pipe system while drunk. Tubes going everywhere, filters that haven't been changed since Earth. And is that? Yes, that's definitely bio-waste in the pre-processing chamber. Your pee and poop from yesterday waiting to become tomorrow's drinking water. Circle of Life, Mars edition. The manual is 400 pages of technical diagrams written by someone who clearly hated people. Step 1. Disconnect the primary filtration module. Cool, which one is that? There are 6 things that could be modules. Step 2. Check the osmosis membrane integrity. With what, your feelings? The diagnostic tools are in a kit that was in the part of the ship currently scattered across the Martian landscape. You start with percussive maintenance, the universal technique of hitting things until they work. The grinding noise stops. Success. Then it starts again, louder, less success. 3 hours into dismantling tubes, you realise you're having a full conversation with the recycler. Come on, baby, you can do this. Just need you to clean my pee. That's all. Not asking for miracles here. The recycler responds with a gurgle that sounds almost sarcastic. You find the problem. A filter so clogged it looks like someone tried to strain cheese through it. The back filters are in storage, but half of them got contaminated with Mars dust during the crash. You grab the least dusty one and pray to whatever deity handles water filtration on hostile planets. While working, you start narrating your actions like you're hosting a DIY show. Welcome back to Fixing Crap on Mars with your host, the only person for millions of miles. Today we're learning why you should have paid attention in engineering class, instead of thinking you'd never need this knowledge. The new filter slides in, and the recycler stops grinding. Water starts flowing at 70% capacity. It's brown at first, which is disturbing, then gradually clears to something that might generously be called water-coloured. You taste it. It tastes like pennies and regret, but it's water. On Mars, penny-flavoured regret water is a luxury. Lunch is a celebration. Chicken and rice. It's neither chicken nor rice, but it's warm and that's enough. You eat while looking at the mission roster on the wall. 6 names, yours is third. Commander Martinez, who loved terrible jokes. Pilot Chen, who brought hot sauce for everything. Dr. Okonkwo, who sang in the shower. Engineer Petrov, who could fix anything with duct tape. Biologist Kim, who was growing tomatoes in the test lab. You realise you're unconsciously setting places at the table for them. 6 spots, 5 empty. You've been putting out their favourite MREs at their seats. Martinez gets the spicy beef. Chen gets anything with noodles. It's been 3 days and you're already having tea parties with ghosts. The afternoon is maintenance time. Check the seals, holding. Check the power, 62 days if you're lucky. Check the oxygen, still overproducing because the system thinks 6 people are breathing. You try to recalibrate it, but the computer needs authorization from the commander. The commander is currently part of the Martian landscape. You try overriding with your credentials. Access denied. You argue with the computer for 20 minutes before remembering it can't hear you yelling at it. Though yelling feels good. It's something to do with the frustration that's building like pressure in a bottle. The sun sets at 3:37 PM Mars time because Mars has a 24.6 hour day. Just enough to mess with your circadian rhythm. It's like perpetual jet lag where the jet exploded on landing and everyone died except you. Too dark? Yeah, but what about this situation isn't dark? Dinner is vegetable lasagna. The quotes are doing a lot of work there. It's red sauce over something that might have been pasta in a previous life. You eat it while writing in the mission log, which is supposed to be scientific observations but has devolved into a diary. Day 3. Fixed water recycler. It hates me but works. Oxygen system still thinks I'm 6 people. Computer is passive-aggressive. I had a 10-minute conversation with a wrench today. The wrench was supportive but not helpful. Mars still trying to kill me. I'm disappointed by its lack of creativity. Same dust, same cold, same death. Mix it up, Mars. You do the evening equipment check in your underwear because who's going to stop you? Mars? The suit is hung up, covered in dust that won't come off. Your clothes are starting to smell because water is too precious for laundry. You're 1 week away from going full castaway and wearing supply packaging as fashion. The habitat creaks at night as the temperature drops to -120. Metal contracting sounds like whispering, and your brain keeps trying to make it into words. Sometimes it sounds like Chen saying check the seals. Sometimes it's Kim laughing at something. Once you swear you heard Martinez say your name, and you actually answered before remembering you're alone. You've started leaving the lights on because the darkness is aggressive. It's not just dark, it's the absence of the possibility of light. No street lights in the distance, no planes overhead, no moon bright enough to matter. Just your habitat lights making a tiny bubble of not dead yet in an ocean of nothing. Before bed, you do what's becoming a ritual. You look at Earth through the window. Tonight it's just a star, indistinguishable from the others except you know what it is. Everyone you've ever known is on that dot. Every pizza place, every bad movie, every annoying commercial, every beautiful sunset, every crying baby on an airplane you'd give anything to hear right now. You realise you're crying. When did that start? Doesn't matter. There's no one to see it. You could cry for hours and the only witness would be Mars. And Mars doesn't care about your feelings. Mars doesn't care about anything. It just sits here, being red and dead and 50 million miles from anything that matters. Day 3, you say to the empty habitat. Still alive? Water tastes like coins. Talks are tools today. They're good listeners, starting to understand why Tom Hanks was friends with a volleyball. Tomorrow you need to figure out food security. Half your supplies are contaminated with Mars dust, and you need to know what's salvageable. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight's problem is falling asleep when every sound could be something breaking that will kill you. At least the water recycler is working. Sure, you're drinking your own filtered waste, but on Mars that's what passes for a victory. Day 4. Food inventory and making friends with equipment. You wake up from a dream about grocery stores, aisles and aisles of fresh produce, and you were just standing there crying at the beauty of bananas. Bananas! The most boring fruit on earth, and here you are having erotic dreams about them. Mars is really messing with your head. The morning routine is becoming automatic. Check life support, still running. Check power, 61 days. Check water, tastes metallic but won't kill you. Check sanity, results inconclusive. Breakfast is French toast, which is a war crime against both France and toast. It's a compressed square that becomes vaguely bread-like when you add hot water. You eat it while staring at the food storage compartment you've been avoiding. Time to face the music, or in this case, face the food that might be poisoned with Mars dust. You suit up in makeshift protection goggles, breathing mask, rubber gloves. You look like you're about to perform surgery on a radioactive sandwich, which isn't far from the truth. Opening the damaged storage is like archaeological excavation. Layers of MREs, some pristine, some covered in that fine red dust that gets into everything. Mars dust is basically nature's way of saying, you don't belong here in particle form. It's toxic, it's everywhere, and it's probably going to give you cancer if the loneliness doesn't kill you first. You start sorting. Clean packages go in the will live pile. Dusty packages go in the maybe pile. Packages with actual tears or punctures go in the hello death pile. It's like the world's worst game show, Meal or No Meal, hosted by a planet that wants you dead. The good news, about 120 days of clean food. The maybe news, another 30 days of questionable packages that might be okay if you clean them really well. The bad news? 30 days of food that's definitely contaminated. The math still sucks. You're looking at 150 days of food if you're lucky, and rescue is minimum 2 years away. Your calculator doesn't have enough digits for how screwed you are. You pick up a contaminated package of beef stroganoff and start talking to it. You could have been dinner buddy. We could have had something special, but no, you had to go and get all toxic. It's not me, it's you. Actually, it's Mars, but you're the one I'm mad at. This is getting weird. You're eulogizing food. But the conversation continues because the alternative is silence, and the silence here has weight. It presses on your eardrums like you're underwater. Lunch is a clean package you're confident won't kill you. Cheese tortellini. It tastes like someone described Italian food to someone who'd never left Mars. While eating, you realise you've started assigning personalities to the equipment. The water recycler is Gurgle, and she's moody but reliable. The oxygen system is Wheeze, and he's trying his best. The computer is Hal, because of course it is, and Hal is a jerk who won't accept your override codes. Hal, we need to talk about the oxygen situation, you say to the computer. Authorization required flashes on screen. I'm literally the only person here, Hal. Who else is going to authorize it? The ghost of Commander Martinez. Authorization required. You're why people don't trust technology, Hal. The afternoon project is trying to stretch the food supply. The manual mentions something about reduced calorie protocols for emergency situations. Basically, it's a fancy way of saying starve slower. If you cut to 1,500 calories a day, you might stretch the food to 200 days. You'll be weak, constantly hungry, and probably start hallucinating more than you already are, but you'll be alive. You're already hallucinating a little. Earlier you could swear you saw movement outside. just a shadow crossing the window. Your rational brain knows it's impossible. Nothing moves on Mars except dust and shadows. But your mammal brain, the part that evolved to see tigers and tall grass, is screaming that something's out there. You check the outside cameras. Nothing. Red rocks, red dust, red everything. Mars is like a planet-sized Rothko painting, except instead of evoking emotion, it evokes the certainty of death. The EVA suit hanging on the wall has started to look like a person. Sometimes you catch it in your peripheral vision and think someone's standing there. You've named it Wilson because you're not even trying to be original anymore. Hey, Wilson, want to watch me eat dinner alone again? Cool, cool. Your conversation skills suck, but you're a good listener. Dinner is the last of the good beef stew. Tomorrow you start experimenting with the maybe contaminated food. Tonight is a farewell to food safety. You eat slowly, savouring every brown chunk of mysterious protein. The evening is spent doing what you've started calling Mars TV. You sit at the window and watch dust move. That's it. That's the entertainment. Sometimes the dust goes left, sometimes right. Occasionally a dust devil forms in the distance, and that's like the season finale. You provide commentary. Oh, look at that dust devil, folks. Coming in from the east at maybe 10 meters per second. That's a quality whirlwind right there. You don't see that kind of rotation every day. Well, actually, you do, because this is Mars and there's literally nothing else to watch. You've started exercising to maintain muscle mass in the low gravity, but it's depressing. You're staying fit for what? To be the healthiest corpse on Mars. You do push-ups while counting in different languages to keep your brain active. English, Spanish, the little bit of Mandarin Chen taught you. You get to 20 in Russian when you remember Petrov was going to teach you more Russian curse words. He never got the chance. The exercise bike is faced away from the window because watching nothing while going nowhere was too on the nose. Instead, you face the wall where someone put up a picture of Earth. It's one of those classic blue marble shots. 7 billion people in one photo, and you're not in it. Before bed, you do your rounds, check the seals, check the equipment, check the food stores one more time because maybe you miscounted and there's actually more food. There isn't. There never is. But checking gives you something to do, and having something to do is the only thing keeping you from sitting in a corner and screaming until your oxygen runs out. You've started a new ritual, saying goodnight to everything. Goodnight, gurgle, keep that water flowing. Goodnight, wheeze, keep me breathing. Goodnight, Hal, you're still a jerk. Goodnight, Wilson, same time tomorrow. Is this madness? Probably. But it's functional madness. It gets you through the day. It makes the habitat feel less empty. 6 people should be here, and instead it's you and your imagination trying to fill the space. You lie down and stare at the ceiling. Someone put glow-in-the-dark stars up there. Fake stars on the ceiling while you're on an actual different planet. The irony is almost funny. Almost. You try to remember constellations, but from Mars they're all different. Even the stars are foreign here. Day 4, you whisper to the darkness. Food situation assessed. It's bad but not immediately fatal. Made friends with equipment. They're terrible conversationalists but excellent listeners. Considering teaching Wilson to play chess, will probably lose. Tomorrow you need to check the exterior of the habitat for damage you might have missed. That means another EVA. Another dance with death in a suit that costs more than most people's education. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, you're alive, fed, and only moderately insane. On Mars, that's practically thriving. Day 5. Finding the crash site and uncomfortable truths. You wake up with a decision already made. You've been avoiding it, but you need to know what happened to the rest of the ship. And the crew, your crew, the people who should be here complaining about the coffee and arguing about whose turn it is to clean the air filters. Breakfast is one of the maybe contaminated packages you cleaned yesterday. Scrambled eggs with peppers. You eat it slowly, waiting to see if your stomach objects. It doesn't, which means you've got 30 more days of questionable food to gamble with. Russian roulette, but with MREs. You suit up for EVA, and Wilson watches from his hook. Not today, buddy. This is a solo mission. Well, they're all solo missions, but this one's especially solo. You're explaining yourself to an empty suit. Day 5 and the anthropomorphizing is getting worse. Or better, depending on how you look at it. At least you have someone to talk to, even if that someone is fabric and life support systems. The airlock hisses open and Mars greets you with its usual hospitality. None. Temperature's negative 85 today. Practically tropical by Mars standards. You've got the crash coordinates from the Habitat's computer, about 2 kilometers west, where the rest of your ship decided to have an aggressive disagreement with physics. Walking on Mars is getting easier. You've figured out the rhythm. Push off gentle, float forward, land soft. It's like being permanently on a trampoline, except the trampoline is trying to kill you and there's no net. Your boots leave perfect impressions in the dust. They'll be there forever, probably. Mars doesn't have rain to wash them away. Your footprints are monuments to human stubbornness. The crash site appears gradually. First, just glints of metal in the morning light, then bigger pieces, then... Oh no. The command module is scattered across 500 meters of Martian desert like someone opened a piñata full of human dreams and watched them die. You find Martinez's chair first, still strapped in, empty. The release mechanism is triggered, which means he got out. That's something. You search the area, calling out even though you know it's pointless. Sound doesn't carry well in Mars' thin atmosphere, and if anyone survived, they've been exposed for 5 days now. You find Chen next. Not her, thankfully, just her helmet. It's about 100 meters from the chair, visor cracked but not shattered. There's no blood. That's good, right? That has to mean something good. You're becoming an expert at lying to yourself. The supply module is partially intact, buried nose first in a small crater it made on impact. You dig through it like the world's saddest treasure hunter. More MREs, but most are ruptured. Some medical supplies that somehow survived. Chen's hot sauce collection, individually wrapped and perfect, because of course the hot sauce survives when people don't. Then you find the emergency beacon. It's been transmitting for 5 days. 5 days of help screamed into the void, and Earth won't hear it for another 14 minutes at light speed. By the time they get the signal and send a response, you'll either have figured out survival or become a very well-preserved corpse. You collect what you can carry. Every calorie matters now. You find Petrov's toolkit, intact and beautiful. You would have loved to know your tools survived, you tell the empty Mars air. They're probably the only things that worked exactly as designed. Walking back, you stumble across something that stops you cold. Footprints, human footprints, leading away from the crash site toward a small cluster of rocks about 300 meters away. Your heart does something between hope and horror. You follow them, prints get messy, dragging, then stop at the rocks. There's a small shelter built into the lee of the largest boulder. Emergency blankets, supply crates arranged as windbreaks. Someone survived the initial crash. Someone tried to make camp. You find Kim. She's peaceful, which is the only comfort. Frozen in the Mars night, probably the first one. Her suit's battery died. The heating system would have failed, and then... You don't want to think about it. You want to bury her, but the ground is frozen harder than concrete. The best you can manage is covering her with rocks. It takes an hour. Your oxygen alarm beeps twice, but you finish. She deserves that much. Back at the Habitat, you don't even remove your suit properly. You just sit in the airlock for 20 minutes trying to process. Kim made it almost 200 meters. She tried. God, she tried. The shelter she built was textbook perfect, but Mars doesn't grade on effort. You bring in the salvage supplies. 14 more days of food if you're generous with your counting. Petrov's tools, which might literally save your life. Chen's hot sauce, which might make you wish you were dead, but at least the food will taste like something. You eat dinner in silence. Even your own chewing sounds too loud. The Habitat feels bigger tonight. which is weird because it's the same size it's always been. But now you know for sure you're alone. That tiny hope that maybe someone else made it, that maybe you'd find them holed up somewhere, that's gone. You try to write in the log but keep stopping. What do you say? Day 5. Confirmed sole survivor. Found Kim. She tried. Mars 1. It's accurate but feels insufficient. These were people with families, inside jokes, favourite songs. Chen used to hum while she worked. Martinez quoted movies nobody else had seen. Okonkwo could make anyone laugh, even during the worst training days. Petrov could fix anything except this. Kim was going to grow tomatoes on Mars. Instead, she became the first human buried on another planet. That's a historical first nobody wanted. You've started talking to the crew like they're here. Not crazy talking, just talking. Martinez, Hal's being difficult again. You'd probably make a joke about it. Chen, I'm rationing your hot sauce, 1 drop per meal, it's lasting forever. Kim, I'm sorry I couldn't find you sooner. The night is colder somehow. Same temperature, negative 125, but it feels colder. You do your equipment checks on autopilot. Gerger's working at 75%. Wheeze is stable. The solar panels are producing enough power for 58 more days. The numbers are becoming a countdown to something. You're just not sure what. Before bed, you look at Earth again. It's rising over the Martian horizon, blue and perfect and impossibly far away. Everyone you've ever known, everyone who's ever lived except Kim now is on that dot. They're having dinner, watching TV, complaining about traffic, living their lives while you're here cataloguing the dead and talking to equipment. You realise you haven't looked in a mirror in 2 days. When you finally do, you barely recognise yourself. 5 days of beard growth, eyes that look hollow, and something else. You look like someone who's seen too much. Which is funny because you've seen nothing but red rocks and death. Day 5, you say to your reflection. Found the crew, found Kim. She tried to survive. She built a shelter and fought and still died. I have her hot sauce and Petrov's tools and Martinez's jokes that I'll never hear again. Tomorrow I need to fix solar panel 3 because Hal won't shut up about it. Still talking to equipment. Wilson remains supportive but boring. You lie down and stare at the fake stars on the ceiling. Somewhere among the real stars, Earth is listening to 5-day-old distress signals from dead people. In 14 minutes, they'll know something went wrong. In 2 years, they might send help. In between is just you, Mars, and the increasingly thin line between survival and sanity. At least you have hot sauce now. It's the little things. Fixing things that don't want to be fixed. You wake up to Hal having a meltdown. The screen is flashing critical maintenance required in red letters, which is Hal's version of a temper tantrum. Solar Panel 3 has apparently decided to join the rebellion against keeping you alive. Morning to you too, Hal. Yes, I see it. No, I don't care that it's critical. Everything here is critical. Existing is critical. You make coffee with yesterday's recycled water. It tastes like Penny's had a baby with regret, but the caffeine still works. Breakfast is beef patty from the maybe pile. You've started a rating system for the contaminated food. 1 star, might kill you. 2 stars, probably won't kill you. 3 stars, tastes so bad you wish it would kill you. This beef patty is a solid 2 stars. Progress. Time to suit up. Wilson hangs there, judging your technique. What? I'm going as fast as I can. Not all of us are designed to be worn by multiple people. Some of us have to do this solo. The suit doesn't respond, which is probably for the best. The day your equipment starts talking back is the day you know you've completely lost it. Outside, Mars is showing off its morning colours. The sky is butterscotch near the horizon, fading to purple-black overhead. It would be beautiful if it wasn't attached to a planet trying to murder you. The broken panel is visible from here, hanging at a sick angle like a broken wing. The warped panel 3 is becoming routine. You know every rock, every small crater, every ripple in the dust. You've started naming landmarks. That's Pointy Rock. That's Bigger Pointy Rock. That crater is Steve. Steve seemed lonely, so you named the smaller crater next to it Steve's friend. You're basically Mars's worst tour guide. Panel 3 is having an existential crisis. The motor that adjusts its angle is frozen, probably from the negative 140-degree nights. On Earth, you'd spray some WD-40 and call it fixed. On Mars, you have to perform surgery with ski gloves on while your oxygen timer counts down. You brought Petrov's tools, and they're beautiful. Everything labelled in his neat handwriting with notes like good for tight spaces and will break if you look at it wrong. You pick the one labelled reliable and get to work. The motor housing is full of Mars dust because of course it is. Mars dust is like glitter from hell. It gets everywhere and serves no purpose except to ruin your day. You're cleaning it out grain by grain when you realise you're humming Chen's working song. You didn't even know you'd memorised it. Sorry, Chen, borrowing your tune. Mine are all depressing. You keep humming while you work. It helps with the rhythm. Brush, tap, blow the dust away. Brush, tap, blow. It's meditative if you ignore the fact that you're doing maintenance on equipment that's the only thing between you and freezing to death. The motor suddenly springs to life, nearly taking your finger off. Panel 3 swings into position with the enthusiasm of someone who just remembered they had a job. Your yelp of surprise is muffled by the helmet, which is good because it was embarrassingly high-pitched. Hal, you seeing this? Panel 3 is back online. You can stop your red alert light show now. You know Hal can't hear you out here, but talking to him has become habit. Like he's mission control. If mission control was passive-aggressive and had no helpful suggestions. The walk back is when you see them. Tracks in the dust. Your blood freezes colder than the Mars morning. They're not your boot prints. They're rover tracks? Old ones, barely visible, probably from decades ago. You follow them for about 50 metres before your rational brain kicks in. Opportunity. Or maybe spirit. One of the old Mars rovers passed through here years ago, exploring, taking pictures, being a good little robot until it died. You're literally crossing paths with humanity's previous attempts at Mars exploration. The successful ones that didn't require food or water or sanity. Hey buddy, you say to the long-gone rover. How do you do it? 20 years up here alone? Oh right, you were a robot. No existential dread. Lucky you. Back at the habitat, Hal has calmed down to yellow alerts, which is his version of being pleased. Power generation is up to 85% optimal. At this rate, you might have electricity for 90 days instead of 60. Party time. You celebrate with an extra packet of sugar in your coffee, living large on Mars. Lunch is Kim's last experiment, a packet of dried vegetables she was testing for the greenhouse that never got built. They taste like disappointment and lost potential, but you eat them anyway. Calories are calories, and honouring the dead means eating their science experiments. The afternoon is inventory time. Again. You've counted everything 4 times, but maybe 5th time's the charm. Maybe you missed a secret stash of food. Maybe there's a break glass in case of stranded on Mars box somewhere. There isn't. The math remains stubbornly against you. 165 days of food if you're creative with contamination. 90 days of power if the panels hold. Water recycler working at 75% efficiency. Oxygen steady. The numbers dance in your head like a countdown to nothing good. You find yourself in the command centre, sitting in Martinez's chair. It still smells like him somehow. That mix of coffee and the cologne he swore he didn't wear but definitely did. His personal tablet is here, locked. You know the password is daughter's birthday. You've known it for months. But logging in feels like grave robbing. Instead, you talk to the empty chair. So, Commander, what would you do? Besides make a terrible joke about the situation. Why did the astronaut break up with Mars? Because they needed space. God, your jokes were awful. I miss them. The exercise hour is getting harder. Not physically, Mars gravity makes you feel like a superhero, but mentally, what's the point of maintaining muscle mass for a rescue that might not come? You do it anyway because routine is all you have. Push-ups, sit-ups, stationary bike facing away from the window because watching nothing while going nowhere is too metaphorical. Dinner is special. You break out Chen's hot sauce for the chicken teriyaki. One drop transforms it from sad to spicy sad. It's an improvement. Your eyes water, your nose runs, and for a moment you feel something other than creeping dread. Thanks, Chen. The evening entertainment is watching Mars sunset #6. They're all slightly different. Tonight's is more orange than usual with green bands near the horizon. Atmospheric optics doing things that would have scientists excited if any were here to see it. You take pictures with the Habitat camera for the mission log nobody will read. You've started a new project, teaching Wilson to play chess. You set up the board and move pieces for both sides. Wilson always plays black because he's wearing a black suit. Makes sense, right? He's terrible at chess, but he's improving, or you're getting worse. Hard to tell. Wilson, you can't move your knight like that. I know you want to, but rules are rules, even on Mars. You move his piece correctly and continue the game. Wilson loses in 12 moves. He'll do better tomorrow. Night falls like a hammer. Temperature drops to negative 130. The Habitat creaks and groans like a living thing. You do your rounds, check the seals, check panels, check the recycler. Gurgle is making a new sound, kind of a whistle. You add it to her repertoire. She's becoming quite the musician. Before bed, you record a message that won't be sent. The communication array is still dead, but you talk to the camera anyway. Day 6, fixed panel 3, found old rover tracks. Reminded me that robots are better at Mars than humans. Taught Wilson chess. He's terrible but improving, still alone, still alive, still talking to myself, but now with more variety. You stare at the ceiling stars. Someone drew a smiley face in them that you just noticed. Probably your Conquo. She would do something like that. Leave a little surprise for whoever looked up. You smile back at it, your first real smile in days. Thanks, Doc, you whisper. I needed that. Tomorrow you need to try fixing the communication array. It's probably hopeless, but hopeless projects are better than no projects. Besides, Wilson needs a chess rematch, and you need to pretend that matters. Day 7. The communication array and false hope. You dream about phone calls, just regular boring phone calls. Your mum asking if you're eating enough. Telemarketers trying to sell you extended warranties. Even being on hold would be amazing right now. You wake up to silence so complete it has weight. Morning, Hal. Morning, Wilson. Morning, Gurgle. You've started doing roll call like you're a kindergarten teacher for equipment. Everyone's present except the people who should be. Breakfast is pancakes and syrup, which is false advertising at its finest. It's a beige disc that becomes a slightly larger beige disc when you add water. The syrup is corn syrup with delusions of grandeur, but it's from the clean pile, so at least it won't kill you. Probably. Today's mission: fix the communication array. You've been putting it off because you know it's destroyed, but false hope is better than no hope, and you're running low on both. You suit up while explaining the plan to Wilson. So here's the thing, buddy. The array is definitely broken. Like scattered across Mars broken. But maybe some part of it works. Maybe we can jerry-rig something. Petrov would try. He'd probably succeed too, but I'm not Petrov. I'm just the biologist who was supposed to study rocks. Outside, Mars is having a mood. The wind is up, not dangerous but annoying. It sounds like whispers through your helmet. Your brain keeps trying to turn it into voices because apparently your subconscious is a sadist. The communication array, or what's left of it, is 500 meters from the habitat. The main dish is crumpled like someone stepped on a soda can. The transmitter housing is cracked open, its guts spilled out and covered in that damn dust. The backup antenna is just gone, probably making friends with Kim's tomato seeds somewhere in the Martian desert. You assess the damage with the optimism of someone who once got a sin electrical engineering. Okay, so the main dish is toast, but the transmitter, maybe? You crack open Petrov's toolkit and find his notes. For when everything is broken, one page says. That's now, Petrov, that's now. The transmitter's circuit boards look like abstract art. Some are intact, some are modern interpretations of what circuit boards might look like if they were hit by a hammer. You start disconnecting the obviously dead parts, which is most parts. 2 hours in, you find something beautiful. The emergency beacon transmitter. It's small, about the size of a lunchbox, and it's intact. It's been sending its distress signal this whole time, screaming into the void at a frequency Earth will hear in about 14 minutes. The message is simple. Mission failure, assistance required, over and over every 30 seconds. You can't change the message. It's hard-coded, but you can add to it. There's an auxiliary data port that accepts basic telemetry. Your hands shake as you connect your suit's diagnostic cable. This is it. This is how you tell Earth you're alive. The interface is primitive. 128 characters maximum. You type carefully with your bulky gloves. Survivor, day 7, habitat stable. Food 165 days, water. Okay, power 90 days alone. Please send help or recipes for Mars dust. You delete the last part. Humour probably won't translate well in 128 characters. You settle for on Survivor Day 7, habitat okay. Supplies limited, need rescue. Coordinates follow. You add the habitat coordinates and hit send. The beacon accepts the data and starts transmitting. In 14 minutes Earth will know. In 28 minutes you might get a response. You've never been so excited about waiting half an hour in your life. The walk back is lighter. You've done something, made contact, sent a message in a bottle across the cosmic ocean. Sure, the bottle is electromagnetic radiation and the ocean is space, but the principle stands. Back at the habitat, you can't sit still. 28 minutes until a possible response. You clean things that don't need cleaning. You reorganize food packets by alphabetical order, then by calorie count, then by how much they look like actual food. Hal, I sent a message. Earth knows I'm alive. Will they will in? You check the clock. 12 minutes. This is big, Hal. This is huge. Hal? Water recycler efficiency at 73%. Thanks for the enthusiasm, Hal. Really feeling the support. You make lunch but can't eat. Your stomach is doing gymnastics. What if the beacon isn't working? What if the message was corrupted? What if Earth's response is sorry, all our rockets are busy? What if they never planned for a single survivor scenario, because who plans for that? The 28-minute mark comes and goes. Nothing. Of course. You forgot about processing time. Earth needs to receive, decode, decide, encode and transmit. Give it an hour, maybe 2. 2 hours pass. You've reorganised the medical supplies and taught Wilson 3 new chess openings he'll never use. Still nothing. Maybe their equipment is down for maintenance, you tell Wilson. Maybe it's night shift and Bob the intern is asleep at the console. Maybe a light flashes on the communication panel. Incoming transmission. Your heart stops, starts, stops again. You rush to the console so fast you bang your knee on Martinez's chair. The message is 128 characters of beautiful, impossible hope. Message received, analysing options, maintain current protocols, rescue mission under evaluation, stay strong, Earth is listening. You read it 8 times, then twice more. Earth is listening. Not was listening or might be listening, is listening. Present tense, you're not screaming into the void anymore. You type back, confirmed, maintaining protocols, morale improved 1000%, Mars still boring, please hurry, also send coffee. You delete the coffee part, professionalism, you send, confirmed will maintain, awaiting further instructions. The afternoon passes in a blur. You're connected, tethered to humanity by radio waves. Every 2 hours Earth sends a status update. They're mobilizing resources, calculating launch windows, fighting about budgets probably, but they're doing something. Dinner tastes better knowing Earth knows you're here. It's still beef stew, and it's still brown mystery chunks, but you eat with appetite for the first time in days. You even break out Chen's hot sauce again. 2 drops this time, living dangerously. You update the mission log with actual mission stuff instead of your descent into madness. Communication established with Earth. Rescue mission under evaluation. Habitat remains stable. morale significantly improved. The evening is chess with Wilson. He's getting better, or you're distracted by the thought that rescue might actually happen. He almost wins a game before you realise he's been cheating. Wilson, you can't castle when you're in check. I know Mars doesn't have rules, but chess does. You fix the board and let him try again. This time he loses properly, which is progress. Before bed, another message from Earth. Sleep well. Tomorrow brings new challenges. Preparing detailed instructions. You're not alone. Repeat, not alone. You stare at those last two words until they blur. Not alone. Technically, you're the most alone any human has ever been, but somehow those two words make it bearable. Earth is listening. Earth is planning. Earth knows you're here. Day 7, you tell the habitat. Made contact. Earth knows I'm alive. They're working on rescue. I'm still talking to equipment, but now it feels less crazy and more like practice for when I have real people to talk to again. Wilson cheats at chess. Gurgle hit a new note today, B flat. Hal remains unimpressed by everything. You lie down and look at the ceiling stars. The smiley face seems brighter tonight. Or maybe that's just hope making everything look better. For the first time in a week you fall asleep without counting the ways Mars could kill you. Earth is listening. You're going to be okay. Maybe. Day 8. Earth's instructions and reality check. You wake up to the communication panel blinking like a slot machine that's about to ruin your life. Earth has been busy while you slept, sending 17 messages that range from helpful to, have you ever been to Mars? Because I'm here and that won't work. The first message makes you laugh in that way that's definitely not healthy anymore. They want you to stop talking to equipment because the psychological team is concerned. Apparently having full conversations with your EVA suit and naming your water recycler are red flags for mental health. Who knew? You stare at Wilson hanging on the wall, your faithful companion who's never once judged your declining hygiene or questionable food choices. Well, buddy, Earth says we need to see other people. It's not you, it's my deteriorating mental state. Wilson maintains his supportive silence, which is probably what worried the psychological team in the first place. They don't understand that silence here isn't just the absence of sound. It's an aggressive presence that makes you talk to anything shaped vaguely like a human just to remember what your voice sounds like. The messages continue flooding in, each one written by someone sitting in a comfortable office with access to food that doesn't require reconstitution and water that doesn't taste like pennies. They want you to reduce your caloric intake to 1,200 calories daily to extend supplies to 220 days. Right, because eating less is a revolutionary idea that definitely didn't occur to you while doing starvation math for the past week. They suggest supplementing with vitamin reserves, which would be great if half of them weren't contaminated with Mars dust that's basically asbestos with commitment issues. You type back trying to explain that you're already rationing, that Mars dust gets into everything like glitter from hell, and that morale tends to drop proportionally with calorie intake, but you only have 128 characters, so it comes out more like, already rationing, vitamins contaminated, very hungry, please send pizza. Earth's nutritional team has clearly never tried to survive on food that makes military MREs look like fine dining. They send detailed protocols about maintaining balanced nutrition while you're sitting here eating scrambled eggs that have the consistency of foam insulation and taste like someone's memory of breakfast. The water recycler manual they reference is 500 pages of technical jargon written by someone who clearly hated both writing and people. Page 347 is about optimizing flow rates, which sounds simple until you realize it involves adjusting 17 different valves in a sequence that would make a Rubik's Cube feel inadequate. You spend an hour turning dials while Gurgle makes increasingly concerning noises that range from dying whale to possessed coffee maker. The heating adjustment is where things get real. Earth wants you to reduce the habitat temperature to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, during the day and 45 at night to conserve power. On Earth, that's grab a sweater weather. On Mars, where the walls are the only thing between you and an atmosphere thinner than political promises, it feels like tempting fate. You make the adjustment anyway, and immediately the habitat feels like a tomb with temperature control. You put on every piece of clothing that isn't the EVA suit, looking like a textile marshmallow as you waddle around trying to stay warm. Breakfast is your new restricted reality. Half a packet of granola with milk that neither granulates nor milks. It's 300 calories of compressed sadness that your stomach receives with all the enthusiasm of a tax audit. You eat it while reading more messages from Earth's psychological team, who want you to maintain a journal and express your emotions. Your emotions are pretty straightforward. Hungry, cold, and increasingly convinced that Mars is just Earth's timeout corner where humanity sends people who thought space exploration was a good career choice. The inventory request actually makes sense, though the result is depressing enough to make you consider just making up numbers. You spend 3 hours cataloguing everything, creating spreadsheets that tell the story of your inevitable doom in neat columns and rows. Clean food, 87 days at 1200 calories. Questionable food that might kill you faster than starving, 43 days. Definitely contaminated food that's basically Russian roulette in packet form, 90 days. Medical supplies you can't use on yourself because self-surgery isn't covered in the manual. Tools that would be useful if you knew how to use them. One hot sauce collection that's become more valuable than diamonds, because at least it makes the food taste like something other than resignation. Lunch is a third of a packet of cheese ravioli that you eat one piece at a time, pretending each one is a full meal. Your body is not fooled. It sends hunger signals that your brain receives loud and clear. But what are you going to do? Eat more and die in 100 days instead of 200? The math is non-negotiable, and math doesn't care about your growling stomach or your dropping energy levels or the fact that you're starting to look at the habitat insulation with recipe ideas. Earth's response to your inventory is predictably optimistic. They're pleased with your rationing, like you're a good student who turned in homework on time, instead of a person calculating their own expiration date. They mention the rescue mission timeline. Launch in 18 months, arrival in 26 months. You read it 5 times, hoping the numbers will change through sheer force of will. 780 days. You have food for 220 if you're creative with contamination and your digestive system doesn't revolt. The gap between those numbers is where hope goes to die. You type back asking for clarification about the food situation, though you already know what they'll say. The response takes longer this time, probably because someone's doing the same math you've been doing and reaching the same impossible conclusion. Finally, understood. Exploring all options, experimental protocols being developed. Maintain hope. Maintain hope. Like hope is a piece of equipment you can check during your evening rounds. Seals holding, water recycler at 74%, hope levels critical but stable. The afternoon is spent following their experimental protocols, which mostly involve doing things you've already tried but with more scientific terminology. They want you to attempt greenhouse construction tomorrow, which is hilarious because the greenhouse module is currently decorating several square kilometers of Martian desert, along with its only qualified operator. But sure, you'll grow potatoes with wishes and duct tape. Worked in that movie, right? Except that was a movie and this is Mars, where the only thing that grows is your list of things that can kill you. Dinner is your 400 calorie allowance. Turkey tetrazzini. That's definitely never met a turkey and might be legally prohibited from using the word tetrazzini. You add a drop of Chen's hot sauce, which has become your daily luxury, your one small rebellion against the bland inevitability of processed survival food. While eating, you read Earth's psychological wellness guidelines that someone definitely wrote instead of figuring out how to send actual help. They want you to practice mindfulness, which you do by being mindfully aware that you're slowly starving on a planet that doesn't know you exist. The evening message from Earth tries to be encouraging by telling you that you're trending on social media, that schools are sending messages that the whole world is watching. Great. Your reality TV for a planet you'll never see again. You wonder what the hashtags are. #MarsAudi, #LonelyAstronaut, #ShouldHaveBeenARobot. Somewhere, people are arguing about your situation in comment sections while eating food they don't have to ration and breathing air that won't kill them. The thought is both comforting and infuriating. You skip chess with Wilson because Earth says you shouldn't play with him, but you end up standing in front of him anyway, explaining your day like he's your therapist who happens to be made of fabric and life support systems. Earth thinks I can grow food. Earth thinks 1,200 calories is sustainable. Earth thinks I'm maintaining hope. Earth thinks a lot of things that require ignoring physics. Wilson doesn't respond, which is why he's such a good listener. He doesn't offer false optimism or helpful suggestions. He just hangs there, shaped like a person but empty, which is increasingly how you feel. Before bed, you do the math again, because apparently you're a masochist who likes numbers that don't add up to survival. Even if you eat every questionable packet, risk every contaminated meal, somehow grow food in poisoned soil, and your body doesn't give up from malnutrition, you're still short by about 500 days. You've started looking at non-food items differently. How many calories in paper? What about insulation foam? Is there a nutritional value to EVA suit fabric? These aren't questions a sane person asks, but sanity is a luxury you can't afford anymore. Day 8, you tell the journal that Earth insists will help your psychological state. Received instructions from Earth. They mean well, but don't understand the situation. Reduced to 1,200 calories. Constantly hungry. Habitat now refrigerator temperature. Tomorrow I'm supposed to build a greenhouse with no experience, no proper equipment, and no hope of success. Still talking to Wilson despite instructions. He understands, Earth doesn't. Starting to think the math is just a slow countdown to joining the crew. At least I won't be alone then. Day 9. Building false hope from duct tape and denial. Day 9 starts with Earth's agricultural advice flooding your communication panel like a farmer's almanac written by people who've never seen dirt. They've sent 43 separate messages overnight about greenhouse assembly, each one assuming you have things like structural integrity and intact equipment, and the will to pretend this matters. The first message begins with Step 1, locate greenhouse module components, which is hilarious because the components are currently playing hide and seek across 3 square kilometers of Martian desert, and most of them are losing. You eat breakfast while reading their instructions, trying not to laugh at the optimism embedded in every line. Your meal is scrambled eggs with peppers that contains neither eggs nor peppers, just yellow powder that becomes yellow paste when you add water. It tastes like what disappointment would taste like if disappointment needed to provide 300 calories. The coffee is instant crystals that mock the very concept of coffee, dissolving into brown water that's somehow both bitter and flavourless. You drink it anyway because caffeine withdrawal on top of slow starvation seems unnecessarily cruel. The greenhouse assembly instructions read like someone translated IKEA directions through every language on Earth and then into Klingon for good measure. Ensure proper atmospheric sealing of growth chamber using provided adhesive strips. The provided adhesive strips are scattered across Mars like expensive confetti, and the growth chamber looks like it got into a fight with physics and lost badly. But you suit up anyway, because what else are you going to do? Admit to Earth that their greenhouse is now modern art scattered across the Martian landscape? Outside, Mars greets you with its typical enthusiasm, which is to say none at all. The temperature is negative 85 Fahrenheit, which passes for tropical here, and the wind is only trying to kill you a little bit. You begin your scavenger hunt for greenhouse pieces, following the debris trail from the crash like the world's saddest Easter egg hunt. The first piece you find is what might have been a support beam or possibly a very expensive tent pole, or maybe just Mars's newest piece of abstract sculpture. It's bent at an angle that suggests it had opinions about landing that weren't consulted. The main greenhouse panel is half buried in a crater, Because of course it is. Mars doesn't just break things, it buries them for extra difficulty points. You spend an hour digging it out with your gloved hands, which is like trying to perform brain surgery while wearing oven mitts filled with pudding. The panel is cracked in 17 places but technically intact if you're generous with your definition of intact and squint really hard. You drag it back toward the habitat, leaving a groove in the Martian soil that will outlast human civilization. Every step reminds you that you're doing manual labour on 1,200 calories a day, and your body is already filing formal complaints with management about unrealistic performance expectations. By noon, you've collected enough pieces to play a very depressing game of greenhouse Tetris. You arrange them on the ground outside the habitat, trying to imagine how they might fit together to create something that could theoretically support life. It's like trying to build a house of cards in a wind tunnel while wearing boxing gloves. Kim's tablet survived the crash, and her notes are still there, professionally written instructions that assume you know what terms like atmospheric equilibrium and growth medium pH balance mean. She'd written little encouraging notes in the margins. Remember, plants want to live, and every garden starts with a single seed. You want to tell her that Mars doesn't care what plants want, but she's buried under rocks 300 meters away, so the conversation would be one-sided. Lunch is a third of a packet of beef stew that you've started thinking of as brown water with delusions of grandeur. You eat it while staring at your greenhouse pieces, trying to summon the energy to continue the charade. Earth sends an encouraging message. Excellent progress on greenhouse recovery. Remember, Mars agriculture will be humanity's greatest achievement. You want to respond that humanity's greatest achievement is currently held together with duct tape and denial, but that seems needlessly negative for the team that's trying so hard to maintain optimism from their comfortable, oxygen-rich offices. The afternoon is spent creating what you generously call a greenhouse frame. It's more like a tent made by someone who's never seen a tent but had one described to them by someone who hates camping. The structure is roughly 4 feet by 6 feet, held together with so much emergency repair tape that it looks like a silver cocoon having an existential crisis. The tape doesn't want to stick because Mars dust has contaminated every surface with its special brand of aggressive interference. You clean, tape, watch it peel, clean again, tape again, add more tape over the failed tape. It's taped all the way down at this point. The sealed structure definitely won't hold Earth atmosphere, but it might hold Mars atmosphere, which is like saying colander might hold water if the water is frozen and you don't move it. You fill the bottom with Martian soil, which is basically poison disguised as dirt. The perchlorates in the soil will kill any Earth plant on contact, but Earth's instructions say to treat the soil with available materials, which assumes that you have materials beyond hope and duct tape. You mix in some water from your precious supply, creating toxic mud that would make an EPA inspector spontaneously combust. Inside this agricultural disaster, you place Kim's surviving seed packets, like you're performing a funeral for vegetables that haven't even been born yet. 12 packets of potential that will definitely never actualize. Tomatoes that will never see red. Potatoes that will never get to be French fries. Some experimental grain that Kim was developing that will never get to disappoint anyone with its taste. You plant them anyway, pushing seeds into poisoned soil while wearing a $12 million suit on a planet where the atmosphere is actively hostile to the concept of growth. The sun sets while you're still working, and the temperature drops so fast you can actually feel it through the suit. The greenhouse frame creaks and groans in the cold, making sounds like it's already giving up. You add more tape because that's your solution to everything now. When civilization eventually finds your remains, they'll wonder why everything is held together with tape. The duct tape astronaut, they'll call you in museums. Children will ask why you thought tape could fix Mars, and tour guides will have to explain that sometimes humans keep trying, even when physics says to stop. Back inside the habitat, you strip off the EVA suit and realise you've been talking to yourself for the entire EVA. Not even to Wilson or Gurgle or Hal. just straight up narrator mode like you're hosting a very depressing cooking show. And here we see the human attempting agriculture on a dead planet. Notice the optimism despite overwhelming evidence of futility. Truly remarkable, or remarkably stupid. The jury's still out. Dinner is your calorie-restricted portion of chicken teriyaki that insults both chickens and Japanese cuisine. You add a precious drop of Chen's hot sauce, which has become the highlight of your day, one drop of flavour in an ocean of bland survival. While eating, you compose your report to Earth, trying to balance honesty with not crushing their enthusiasm. Greenhouse structure assembled from available materials, integrity marginal but functional, seeds planted in treated Martian soil, growth potential unknown. All technically true if you don't mention that marginal is doing more heavy lifting than Atlas, and unknown means definitely zero. Earth responds with an enthusiasm that's inversely proportional to reality. They're excited about your innovation. They're proud of your resourcefulness. Someone has definitely made a PowerPoint presentation about your greenhouse with slides titled Mars Agriculture, Humanity's Next Frontier, while you're sitting here looking at a duct tape tent containing poisoned soil and doomed seeds. They're calculating potential caloric yields from your garden. You don't have the heart or the available characters to tell them that the only thing growing here is your certainty that math doesn't care about human optimism. The evening is spent in your new routine, checking equipment that's slowly failing, pretending the numbers might change if you calculate them differently, and not talking to Wilson even though he's right there, being all suit-shaped and understanding. The greenhouse is visible through the window, a silver monument to human stubbornness standing against the Martian night. It looks exactly as ridiculous as you'd expect a duct tape greenhouse on Mars to look, which is to say, very. Day 9. You tell the journal that's becoming your only honest conversation partner. Built something that might generously be called a greenhouse if you've never seen a greenhouse and don't know what plants need to live. Earth thinks I'm innovative. I think I'm performing elaborate theatre about the futility of hope. The seeds are planted in toxic soil inside a tape tent on a frozen planet with no atmosphere. I give them about as much chance as I give myself, which is to say the math isn't good. But hey, at least I'm trying. That has to count for something, even if that something is just delaying the inevitable with extra steps. Day 10. When the storm hits and the math finally wins, Day 10 arrives with Mars preparing its finale, because even planets understand dramatic timing. You wake up to an unusual darkness outside the habitat window, and at first you think it's just Mars being Mars, but then you see it. A wall of dust on the horizon, massive and moving like the planet decided to stand up and walk toward you. It's beautiful in the way that deadly things often are. A rolling cloud of red and brown that stretches from the ground to where the atmosphere gives up trying. Your tablet estimates it'll hit in 6 hours. Earth's morning message, blissfully unaware, asks about greenhouse progress and reminds you to maintain positive thinking. Right. Positive thinking versus a continental-sized dust storm. Place your bets. Breakfast is what you've started calling yellow paste that identifies as eggs, reconstituted with water that Gurgle produced overnight with what sounded like death rattles, but was probably just Tuesday for her. You eat mechanically while watching the storm approach, doing mental calculations about solar panel protection, habitat seal integrity, and how long batteries will last when the panels are buried under enough dust to build another planet. The math, as always, is not encouraging. But then again, when has the math ever been on your side since you woke up alone on Mars? You suit up for what might be your last EVA, though you don't phrase it that way in your mind because Earth's psychological team wouldn't approve. Outside, the air is already hazier than usual, and the wind has picked up enough that walking feels like pushing through invisible pudding. You need to lock down the solar panels in their protective position, secure anything that could become a projectile, and check on your duct tape greenhouse one last time. The work is exhausting on your starvation diet, and you have to rest every few minutes sitting on rocks that have existed for billions of years without ever knowing life, thinking about how you're about to become part of Mars's geological record. The greenhouse is already failing because of course it is. The tape is peeling in 12 places, creating gaps where Mars's almost not there atmosphere is having a conversation with Earth's attempt at creating pressure. The internal temperature reading shows -50 overnight, which means those seeds you planted are now just very expensive frozen organic matter. You add more tape anyway, layering it like you're building a silver cocoon for vegetables that were never going to grow anyway. It's pointless, but pointlessness has become your brand. You're the person taping vegetables to Mars. That's your legacy now. You secure the greenhouse with rocks and cables, knowing the storm will probably turn it into modern art scattered across the next crater. But you do it anyway because Kim would have done it. She would have fought for those seeds until the last second, so you fight for them too, even though they're already dead. Even though you're fighting for ghosts of vegetables on a planet that doesn't even have ghosts, because ghosts would require something to have lived here first. Back inside, you begin storm preparations with the efficiency of someone who's accepted that this is the new normal. Every seal gets checked twice, then checked again because paranoia is just another word for appropriate Mars safety protocols. You add extra tape to spots that look suspicious, though at this point the habitat is more tape than original material. It looks like a giant silver ball of denial holding back a planet that wants in. The habitat groans under the increasing wind, making sounds you've learned to interpret. That creak means the northwest corner is taking stress. That whistle means Seal 7b is starting to give. You're like a doctor listening to a dying patient's symptoms, except the patient is your life support system and there's no cure for Mars. Lunch is abandoned because the storm is accelerating and you need to finish preparations. Your stomach complains, but it's been complaining for 9 days, so what's new? You double-check battery reserves, 48 hours if you turn off heating and non-essential systems. Non-essential is a funny term when you're the only human on a planet. Everything feels pretty essential when it's keeping you from becoming a freeze-dried museum exhibit. The storm hits at 13:47 Mars time, and you know the exact minute because that's when the habitat goes from bright to twilight in about 30 seconds. The sound is incredible, like being inside a sandblaster operated by someone who learned about volume control from death metal concerts. The habitat shakes but holds, each gust testing welds and seals and the general concept that humans belong anywhere outside Earth's atmosphere. You can't see anything through the windows now, just angry red darkness that could be day or night or the inside of Mars's revenge for you trying to grow tomatoes. You sit in the semi-darkness, emergency lights casting weird shadows that make the habitat feel like a submarine that's drowning in dust instead of water. The solar panels are definitely not generating power. You're on batteries now, watching the percentage tick down like a countdown to when you'll have to choose between heating and oxygen production. That's a fun choice. Do you want to freeze to death or suffocate? Mars is like a really aggressive restaurant with a terrible menu. The communication system struggles through the storm, managing to pull in a message from Earth that takes 20 minutes to fully download. Weather satellites show major storm system in your area. Take all necessary precautions. We're monitoring the situation. You laugh hard enough that you're worried about oxygen consumption. They're monitoring. From 50 million miles away, they're monitoring. That's like watching someone drown from an airplane and yelling, "We see you." The response you type is probably too honest. Storm in progress, habitat holding for now, solar panels buried, on battery power, food day 220 versus rescue day 780 still equals impossible. Math remains undefeated. But hey, I'm monitoring the situation too. The afternoon dissolves into evening without any real distinction because it's all darkness now. You eat dinner by flashlight to save power. Beef stroganoff that would make Russian cuisine file a restraining order. You can't see it, which is probably a mercy. It tastes like nothing anyway, your taste buds having apparently decided to quit before the rest of your body. The storm continues its assault, and somewhere in the darkness, you hear a crash. The greenhouse. Your duct tape monument to human stubbornness has joined the rest of the crash debris. Those seeds Kim designed are now just very expensive Mars fertilizer, assuming Mars ever decides to grow anything besides human despair. You do the math again by flashlight, not because you need to, but because ritual is all you have left. Even if you eat everything, including the contaminated food that will definitely make you sick, you're looking at maybe 250 days. Rescue is 780 days away. The gap is 530 days of nothing. You've started wondering about the nutritional value of EVA suit fabric. It's probably zero, but at least chewing it would give you something to do while starving. You calculate how long you could survive on vitamin supplements alone. About 40 days before organ failure. You calculate how long on just water. Maybe 30 days. The math always ends the same way, with you becoming Mars's first human fossil. The storm rages on, and you find yourself at the window even though there's nothing to see. Somewhere beyond this chaos, Earth continues spinning. People living their lives, complaining about things that matter to them while you're here, calculating exactly how you're going to die. Starvation? Equipment failure? Storm breach? It's like a really morbid multiple choice question where all the answers are correct. Day 10, you say to the darkness, not even bothering to write it anymore because what's the point of documentation when you're the only one who'll ever read it? Storm has hit. Greenhouse destroyed, solar panels buried, running on battery power that'll last maybe 2 days. Food situation remains mathematically impossible. Had a moment of clarity. I'm going to die on Mars. Not being dramatic, just accepting the numbers. 220 days of food, 780 days to rescue. The math doesn't care about human spirit or determination, or all those inspirational posters in NASA break rooms. You lie down without checking the equipment because if something fails during the storm, you can't fix it anyway. The habitat creaks and groans around you, fighting its battle against Mars, slowly losing like everything human does here. You think about the crew, Martinez with his terrible jokes that you'd give anything to hear right now, Chen with her hot sauce collection that's become your only source of joy, Okonkwo, who could make anyone laugh even during the worst training, Petrov, who could fix anything except the situation you're in now, Kim, who wanted to grow gardens on Mars and instead became its first human fertilizer. They got the quick exit. You got the slow fade, the mathematical certainty of diminishing resources. Tomorrow, if the storm doesn't breach the habitat tonight, you'll wake up and pretend to try again. You'll ration food that isn't enough, fix equipment that's failing, send Earth updates about your steady decline disguised as scientific progress. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, you're just a heartbeat in a tin can, buried in a storm on the planet that's been dead for billions of years, 50 million miles from home, alone in a way that no human has ever been alone before. The storm continues, patient as geology. Mars doesn't care about your greenhouse or your hope or your math. It just continues being Mars, red, dead, and ready to add you to its collection of failed attempts at life. You close your eyes and listen to the storm, thinking about how you're going to be famous, the first human to die alone on Mars. They'll name things after you, a crater, probably, maybe a rover, definitely a safety protocol. Remember what happened to that astronaut will become a cautionary tale told to future Mars missions, assuming humans are stupid enough to try this again. Still alive, you whisper to no one, because no one is exactly who's listening. Day 10 on Mars, population 1, for now. The darkness swallows the words, the storm swallows the darkness, and Mars swallows everything. Patient and indifferent and eternal, waiting for you to realise that you're not surviving on Mars. You're just dying on it more slowly than your crewmates did. The only difference is you get to document it. Welcome to the rest of your life on Mars, all 220 days of it, if you're lucky. If you can call slowly starving to death on a dead planet while talking to equipment lucky. But hey, at least you're trending on social media back on Earth. Mars tragedy, lone astronaut, should have packed more food. The storm rages on. Mars is patient. The math is patient. Only you are running out of time, measured now in packets of freeze-dried food and declining battery power. Tomorrow is day 11, if there is a tomorrow. On Mars, that's always a question, never a certainty. And there you have it. 10 days on Mars, alone, watching the slow-motion math of death work its inevitable logic. Our astronaut is still alive, still fighting, still pretending that duct tape and determination can overcome the fundamental indifference of physics. But Mars doesn't grade on effort. It doesn't care about the human spirit. It just waits, patient as gravity, while the food runs out and the equipment fails, and the rescue that might come in 2 years races against starvation that will definitely come in 200 days. This is the reality of Mars exploration that nobody wants to talk about at those fancy space conferences. It's not humanity's bold future among the stars. It's a cold, hungry death on a planet that doesn't even notice you're there. Every breath uses resources you can't replace. Every calorie burned is one closer to none. Every day survived is just one day closer to the inevitable. But here's the thing about humans that makes us simultaneously amazing and stupid. We keep trying long after it makes sense to stop. Our astronaut will probably keep going, rationing those packets down to crumbs, trying to grow potatoes in poisoned soil, fixing equipment with tape and delusion, sending updates to Earth until their fingers are too weak to type. Not because they think they'll survive, but because giving up isn't in our programming. We're the species that looked at Mars, a planet actively hostile to life, and said, let's send people there. That's either inspiring or insane, and honestly, it's probably both. Thanks for joining me on this journey to Mars, where we learned that the red planet isn't just inhospitable. It's basically a 50 million mile away murder scene waiting to happen. If you made it through all 10 days without having an existential crisis about the fragility of human life, you're either an optimist or you weren't paying attention. If this story of mathematical doom and duct tape desperation kept you watching, hit that subscribe button like it's the last packet of food on Mars. Ring the notification bell so you never miss our next adventure in humans going places they definitely shouldn't go. We're thinking maybe the bottom of the ocean next, or inside a black hole. You know, cheerful stuff. Leave a comment below telling me which day broke you. Was it day 5 when they found Kim's frozen body? Day 8 when Earth basically said, have you tried not starving? Or day 10 when the storm hit and reality finally stopped pretending there was hope? Be honest, most of us would have given up the moment we realised the toilet situation. Share this video with that friend who thinks camping without cell service is roughing it. They need to understand what real isolation looks like. Spoiler? It looks like Mars, and Mars looks like a parking lot designed by death. And remember, every time you complain about your apartment being too small, your food being bland, or your Wi-Fi being slow, there's a hypothetical astronaut on Mars who would literally kill for your problems. Your worst day on Earth is still better than the best day on Mars, because at least on Earth, the planet isn't actively trying to murder you with math. Stay curious, stay grateful, and for the love of all that's holy, stay on Earth. Mars isn't going anywhere, and neither should you. Until next time, I'm going to go eat a meal that doesn't come from a packet, drink water that doesn't taste like pennies, and really appreciate this whole breathable atmosphere thing we've got going on here. Peace out, Earthlings!